I mean, in the sense that we don't listen. We spend no time listening to each other anymore. While somebody's speaking, you're determining what you should say next.
You're watching the Spotlight Network, starring Hollywood's newsman, Logan Crawford.
They now believe a single member.
He works with TV and film legends. And now, Logan's shining the spotlight on the world's top emerging authors and creators.
International were abducted.
This is Spotlight with Logan Crawford, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're exploring a timely and transformative guide to better communication. The name of the book, 12 Simple Words. It's written by a terrific author. His name is John W. Kennedy. In a world overflowing with devices but starving for real connection, Kennedy challenges us to move from talking at people to truly talking with them. His book delivers a powerful reminder that empathy, understanding, and individual perspective can bridge divides and inspire meaningful change in our daily interactions. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Writers Branding for helping us put him on TV today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. John, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Well, thank you very much, Logan. I think I'm a talented engineer and a wannabe author, but thank you.
Well, you're an author now, you're in print, so we've got the proof, and we've got it in black and white. Tell us about the inspiration to write 12 Simple Words.
Well, to be honest with you, Boy Scouting was very important to me as a kid. Not because of all the, cultural, and positives, but to be able to go out and camp and hike and start fires in the woods without burning anything of value down. And then, as I moved through the ranks, and got a little bit older, I started to see things a little differently. And the thing that every scout learns is the scout law. And it's 12 words. That's all it is. A scout is, and it reads off the words. And to me, it always was sort of a race to say the word in, trust with a little help for friendly courteous, but it then became, I had a scoutmaster, Dennis Spencer, who said, John, slow it down, listen to the damn words. And he would always say that to us. And I took that to heart. And then as a teen, my dad died suddenly, who was very important to me. And I was a very upset and angry young man because you don't know. You think you're the only one that has to deal with it, And if it wasn't for my mom and a couple scout leaders, and to be honest with you, these 12 simple words, I'm not sure what path I would have taken because I was really confused. So to be honest with you, that's the motivation. The path to actually writing it, though, was a much longer effort to me. As I said, I'm an engineer and I'm good at technical papers, but writing a book, so, those are the things that get to you. But I originally started writing it as a business book, saying that if you followed these 12 words, you could be successful. That didn't flow for me. So what I finally came upon was it came to me that, because people are saying, well, it's a self-help book. I don't know what that is really. Although I've read a lot of them, they don't always apply to you, right? It's self-help, but, I love Ted Williams. He wrote a great book about hitting, but he's 6'4", I'm 5'7". So it doesn't fit.
Right.
So I devised this other point about other voices where I went to people that were important in my life and people that I had come across in all steps of Boy Scouts, military, government, religious, business, academics. And I said, pick a word, write about it, in the thought that somebody reading the book might not like exactly what I say about trustworthy, but might like what Logan Crawford says about trustworthy. And to me, that brought the whole book together and made it really of value, those other voices.
Absolutely. Talk to us about those 12 simple words. Why don't you go through them, at least some of them, for us?
Well, as I said, I'll say the scout law as we all do, thousands of times.
Right.
Trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And and to me, the one that always meant the most was trustworthy. And I'm not sure whether it's the first one or the one that really resonates, but it does. I mean, trust builds everything.
Exactly.
Uh,
You can't really be reverent unless you're trustworthy, right?
yeah,
And
yeah. I
so
mean,
on.
you got to be something that if Logan calls me for a hand with something, I damn well better be trusted to show up and do what I said I would do. And that's the basis to all of these things. And that's what it came upon me, that it wasn't just the 12 individual words, it was the order that they were in, and how they related to each other. Somebody did a really good job 100 plus years ago, saying these are 12 great words, this should be our law. And what's interesting is, as a kid, you say it, a scout is. And to me, it always sort of amazed me that it was a law that said you are it already assumed that I was these things. As an 11-year-old boy, that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Talk to us about these 12 words and their relation to communication.
Well, I mean, I think we've all seen a change in the world over the last, I don't know, 20 years, but certainly over the last 10, where what we really want to do is affix blame. And if we affix blame, if we find out who to blame, then we're done. We don't have to solve the problem or anything else. We just affix blame. And if you disagree with me, you're evil. You're not wrong, or I don't disagree, you're automatically evil. And to me, in a word, that's asinine. So maybe that should be the 13th word, but my mother would get mad. But that's just it, is that, you got to be able to, to have conversations and even to have arguments. There's nothing wrong with an argument. As an engineer, designing something, you'd have arguments or discussions with other engineers, and the end product would get better because you decided what you should add. I'd like to see that more on a global scale, but also just in your own family. Sometimes, if somebody voted for one or the other, you can't talk to them. Come on, get real.
I
At the
know.
end of the day, I mean, is that really what counts? I mean, you can disagree about stuff, great,
Right.
but I.
Well,
We
we've kind
can't
of
seem to have a
criminalized
conversation.
language, right?
Well,
We've kind of
yes, true.
criminalized language.
That's part of. I'd always envisioned the book as a trilogy, and I've worked on the other two books. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but one of the things is I don't get some of the things that, as you say, criminalize the language. How do you make some of these assumptions based upon, I get the thing is, what's hate speech? Well, I think I know what something is. Somebody says something hateful, but it depends on who you are, right?
Right.
You
Right.
know, I'm a Yankee fan, man. You tell me the Red Sox are the greatest of all time, that's hate speech. I mean, I know that's a silly example, but to be honest with you, you know, you've got to allow things that you don't like in conversation to have free speech. And to me, free speech is critical, even when it's speech you don't want to hear.
Yeah. And I think especially when it's speech you don't want to hear, I think you should defend somebody's right to say whatever they want, in large part. Obviously, some things are outrageous and shouldn't be said. Fire shouldn't be yelled in a movie theater. But everything else is like beauty.
Right.
It's in the eye of the beholder. I mean, if somebody says they like traditional marriage, that's not necessarily homophobic or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? There are different stances that people can have, and everybody's offended by everything nowadays. And this whole issue of hate speech has made it very, very hard to define what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And in a digital age, what will get you deplatformed and what will not get you deplatformed, right?
Right. And and it's to me, I read some of these things on social media, and it's it's internet courage. I can hide behind my name. I grew up a
Keyboard
little differently.
warriors.
Yeah, yes. I
Yeah.
mean, if I have a problem with you, I'm going to say, Logan, man, you said this, I didn't like it. Let's, what's the story?
Right.
And then we can have that point of view. And maybe I understand it, maybe I don't, but it doesn't mean I hate you and you should never be heard from again.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, the whole idea of a computer-mediated communication has really changed communication. One, I think people are afraid of face-to-face communications. They no longer want to call, they only want to text. I think particularly the younger generations don't even want to eat out in a restaurant. They only want to do DoorDash because they're afraid of interactions and communication.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's part of it. I mean, and COVID certainly didn't help. Locking people away for 2 years, and it just seemed, man, one of the strangest points in my life. But luckily I went to work every day. So did my wife. So did our son. So we at least were out in the world because of the jobs we held. But if you sat at home for 2 years, holy crow, how odd is that? And if you're a kid,
Yeah.
that's abusive.
Exactly, exactly. Unable to be around their peers, unable to be around their friends, unable to live a normal life. And 2 years is a sizable chunk out of a grade school kid's life. For 2 years for me and you, it's not that much. It's a small percentage. But if you're 6 years old, that's a third of your life.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I went to Catholic school, and I used to sit and watch that clock tick. So
Yeah.
2 minutes sometimes was a long time when you're 8 years old.
Exactly, exactly. The Catholic school that I went to, the bottom of the clocks all said the same thing. Time passes, will you? So that was our warning. Talk to us a little bit about the problems with communication as far as people talking at each other rather than talking with each other.
Well, I mean, some of it's just simple stuff. I mean, in the sense that we don't listen.
Mhm.
We spend no time listening to each other anymore. While somebody's speaking, you're determining what you should say next. And that really isn't good. In the business world that I grew up into, you had to listen, because if you're going to a client and he needs this type of engineering work, and he's going to want you to give him a quotation for that work, you better be able to put together a scope of work that and a price that matches it. And if you don't and you get the job, you're in trouble, because you still got to complete the job. And it sounds commonsensical, but we don't do that to others. We listen to come back instead of listen to hear. And it's okay to come back with something. Hey, wait a minute, Logan, tell me what you meant by that. Because
Right.
I'm lost.
Right.
And we all get impatient about certain things, but we just don't know how to communicate, and we don't know how to engage. As you said, we do this, the
Yeah.
phone, and we text out stuff, and it's not a good way to do things. Half the time I get stuff from people, I have no idea what they're saying in a text,
Right.
because I'm not smart enough to figure out all the little nomenclature.
Yeah. It's basically a code is what you're getting when you're getting I'm getting a text message. Let's give the folks at home an overview of the book. What will they find when they crack the covers?
Well, I think, it's funny. I call it a bathroom book.
Mhm.
And I say that because there's a book called The 1 Minute Manager. Dr. Blanchard wrote it. And I love the book because it taught me more about management than just about anything. And I could sit there, I could leave it in my bathroom, and I probably read it 25 times over, and I consider it the same thing. I try to break it down into bite-sized pieces. I've written a bunch of technical papers. My dissertation for my doctorate, was about the global supply chain. And if you ever can't sleep, please let me know. I'll give you the copy, and by page 5, you're out. But I wanted something where somebody could look at it, read it, and then consider what I said and consider what somebody else said, so that it's a bite size, so they're thinking about something, not thinking about I got to go, it's not a story like a novel. It's a series of ideas that I try to tie together at the end. And I been told that I did it, but I hope that they're not just BSing me.
Yeah. What do you hope readers take away from the book?
Well, I hope to take away from the fact that, if they were in scouting, to revisit some of that stuff. Boy Scouts
Yeah.
or Girl Scouts, tremendous programs that have had their issues, but I think we need them more and more. Yeah. Secondarily, as a parent, maybe you see it as a way that you can, change things a little bit in your children's lives. And at the end of the day, I hope it makes people think a little bit about, and then I find myself now sometimes when I say something or do something, I said, it wasn't a wise, I went the wrong path. I should have thought this. And that's the whole idea, is making somebody think.
It's interesting you talked about the Scouts, and the Scouts have been given a hard time lately, and so has the Catholic Church, of course. But there's always problems with every organization. It doesn't matter what it is. There are bad doctors, there are bad priests, there are bad rabbis, there are bad scout leaders, there are bad teachers. Everybody's got their bad apples. But I think some of these basic core groups in society, such as the Scouts, have been denigrated in part because of political agendas. Do you believe that as well?
Well, I certainly believe that. And, I don't think that, look, I don't think scouting nationally always made the right decisions. I just don't. And that's my opinion. But scouting happens mainly in your town, or at your church, or at your synagogue, or at your mosque, or at your, that's where it happens. And to me, all those volunteers and those people who could be doing something completely different are there for you or your son or your daughter. That's where a lot of it comes to be. And those were a lot of the life lessons that I learned. I was a good athlete and I could play all these sports, but I'll tell you, you go to Philmont Scout Ranch out in New Mexico and you hike in the mountains, for 10 days with a 50-pound pack on your back as a 15-year-old. And you know what? You've accomplished something, and you've built your self-esteem and your self-awareness more than, going to football practice. Not knocking football. I love sports. Right. But the value that we can get from some of these organizations, said the same thing can be said for Girl Scouts. I don't have a daughter, but I worked a lot with girls that were in the program to help them as well. And we just don't understand. We're more concerned about a kid playing a sport from age 4 to age 18, and that are going to burn out and not want to play the sport anymore, than we are about giving them maybe a more stable foundation for life well lived.
Absolutely. I remember taking my son camping in Montauk, the east end of Long Island, in the spring, freak snowstorm, where half the boys were crying as we hiked. I was in the tent doing bicycle legs to stay warm, because I learned a valuable lesson. Never buy a $29 sleeping bag at Target, because you'll freeze if it starts to snow. But there's all sorts of things that you'll learn in scouting, and I think it's great. In fact, packing more food would have been another good lesson as well. I think I had like a can of Dinty Moore stew, and that was it. And I was starving after hiking all day. But they're great adventures, a great part of childhood. And I think people who miss out on scouting are missing out on a lot, whether you're a boy or a girl, whether it's Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts. You made it all the way up to Eagle Scout, I believe, right?
I am an Eagle. I'm a National Distinguished Eagle. There's about 2,000 of us.
Wow.
My son is an Eagle, and I had the blessing of working with 250 young people who made Eagle in my volunteer career, because I stayed involved, because after I realized that they didn't attack, my father wasn't, didn't leave us because it was something personal against me, that it just happens in life. I found that I had to pay back some dues.
Yeah, well, it's quite an accomplishment to be an Eagle Scout. Of all the boys at my son's went to Scouts with, only one became an Eagle Scout, because it is an arduous task, and it's quite an honor to be an Eagle Scout for the folks at home who aren't aware of how tough it is to become an Eagle Scout. What do you say about all the people who profit off of the division today in communication and in politics and in life in general? I mean, everything we read, everything we see online is basically clickbait, trying to get some kind of emotional response from us that you hate this group, you hate that group, you hate this guy, you love this guy, whatever it might be. I think that's really become an insidious part of our culture where you have, Facebook, Instagram, X, whatever it is, wanting to kind of sow seeds of division to make us at each other's throats because they profit every time you click.
I mean, you're 100% right, and you probably deal with it a lot more than I do in your profession. But where do we give people this type of? I was listening to on some show, and then they were talking to this young lady who was 21 years old, and she's an influencer, and she's telling everybody, what they should do with this clothing, that clothing, makeup. And I'm fine with that. I mean, but she's making a lot of money, and I'm saying to myself, does she have the experience to be able to tell you what to do? I don't know. But think about what, I'm not picking any side of the political thing, but, I read where one of the candidates for president spent $1.5 billion in the last, 3 months. Really? How can you spend $1.5 billion in 3 months? And it wasn't going, wasn't going in their pocket. People are making a lot of money just, as you say, clickbaiting and finding things that you can say and stuff. Again, no conversation. And one of the things I try to put at the end of the book is the action to that. We need to take action, not just say things. I mean, it just confuses the hell out of me because it's real easy for me to say something like, yeah, that's a great, idea, and then somebody asks you and you say, hey, Logan, I'll try to be there. Well, as soon as I say I try, that I'm not coming because that's my excuse. And that's not a good thing. My mom, my mom's my biggest hero in life. And, she would say, when I would say hope, she'd say, hope's not a verb, John. And we all have to have hope at times for something to happen. But when she asked me, did you study for the math test? And I said, yeah, I hope I'm ready. Well, either you are or you aren't. You got to act. And we don't want to act. We don't want to act. And part of that action is having a conversation or, learning that you actually get, if you're against people being hungry, then go to a food bank and help. Don't just whine about it that, the government's killing people. Go help.
Exactly.
I mean, that to me is common sense, but
exactly. If their SNAP cards haven't gotten replenished, go cook them a meal, bring food to the food pantry, do something about it. And that's what I was going to ask you. How can the 12 words in your book be used to resolve conflicts for families, workplaces, and so forth?
Well, as I said, I end the book a little bit talking about three things, and something we just talked about a little bit. But I remember when Pay It Forward was a big thing, and there was a movie back in the '80s. And I think that Pay It Forward word got changed to, okay, I'm going to donate to this. And that's okay. These groups, whether it's the Red Cross or Special Olympics or whatever, they need donations, but they also need you. So that's step one. Saying it forward's important. If I'm involved with something that I think is positive, I need to tell you. I need to say, hey, food bank down the street, really a good place. They really care. You're not doing anything Saturday, come with me. You need to say it forward. And the last thing is you need to act it forward. And that's part of what I've been pushing, is it's the action. It's easy to say something. It's not not so easy to do something. And it doesn't have to be something earth shattering. You help, it's raining, and the lady's carrying groceries. Go help her. I mean, it's not rocket science, but these things don't happen anymore. And it's not because people are bad. It's because they don't even think about it. And that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope to drive with the book. I started in 2010, I started a foundation called Team Eagle Foundation, and it's just me and my bride and a couple of friends. And, we've been able to raise and give out over $1.1 million worth of scholarships. And while to me, it's a huge amount. To other charities, it's not. But you know what? We don't have any employees, so 100% goes to people.
Right, exactly. 80% isn't going to covering costs of your CEO and CFO and all of that stuff. Let's talk about technology. Technology can be a friend and a foe. We wouldn't be talking today without great technology.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about how you feel it's hurt or how it's helped the way we interact with each other.
Well, I think mostly it's a positive thing, in the sense the more time we get to spend with people. The problem comes about is the more reliance we have on our cell phones, etc. We went out to dinner the other night, and a family of four sat down next to us, two kids about 8 and 10, and mom and dad. They didn't say a word the whole night to each other. They were each on a different device. And I'm like, well, that was where most of the great conversations happened in my family, and still does in my family. So, that worries about me. Plus, to be honest with you, it's funny, where we used to question things, like if somebody said something, you might say, I don't know if I agree with that. And you go to the encyclopedia, you look it up, or you ask somebody else. Now, if it appears on the internet, we believe it immediately. And, maybe I'm a cynic, but I still like checking out, and seeing, is that real? Because it doesn't sound real, or, so, yeah, and what AI does, who knows? I mean, it's going to be interesting. I am glad that our son is 35 and I don't have to deal with that coming through school now. He's got to worry about that for his son.
Yeah, the AI is a game changer. People are going to be saying things they never said, doing things they never did, and it'll be seamless. I mean, it almost is already there. You can make any person do anything, say anything. The technology has great promise. I think it could help in the field of medicine. I think it could be a great benefit for humanity as well. And I think it'd be great leverage for all of our brains. But if used improperly to disguise miscommunication or outright deceive people, I think it could be a real danger. Before we leave you today, John, just what we'd like the folks at home to know about this book, and why do you think it's important for them to read it?
Well, I think as I said, I think it's a reasonably simple book to read, because it's about 12 words. I think it'll make you think a little bit differently and look at your own self and look at others in a different manner. And I think it's something that you can have that discussion with, because your 12-year-old daughter can read it and your 35-year-old niece can read it, and you can have a good conversation. So that's really what, as I said, I think free speech is critical. My dad fought in World War II and always talked about, he was from Scotland, but I said, well, why'd you go? And he said, because free speech, without, and, that's resonated with me since I was a little boy, because if we can't have free speech, the rest of it doesn't follow. It just doesn't. Exactly. And so I hope they take that away from it, and at the end of the day, I'm proud of the book. It's not Hemingway, but it's, it's decent.
It might make the world a more civil place, and that is a great great accomplishment in this world of division. The name of the book is 12 Simple Words. It is written by John W. Kennedy. It is a much-needed blueprint for better conversations, deeper understanding, and kinder communication in a divided world. It's a powerful reminder that solutions begin with listening. John, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, and see you on Blue Book.
All right, sounds great. Thank you for joining me today, John. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time.